And welcome back to the Cincy Sports Scene. I am your host, Dave. This is episode number 118. Gentleman in the middle is Sam, and the gentleman on my left, probably your right, is Charlie. And together we are bringing you all the latest sports news from greater Cincinnati area. We would really appreciate you guys hitting that like button and subscribe button and sharing with your friends to help us become the number one place for all the latest Cincinnati sports news and information. Today's episode, we're firing up the flex capacitor and heading back in time to the year 1981-82. The Reds had the best record in baseball, but we're not talking about the Reds. Instead, the city was hungry for a winner, and the Bengals were about to reveal their true stripes. So sit back with us as we go down memory lane to the first Super Bowl season in Bengals history. But right now, we've got to get to the week that was. So there we go. Gentlemen, how you doing this week?
Pretty good. Can't complain. A little tired. Tearing out that shower today up at your house, but not too bad.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, doing okay. I've been working on getting my house ready to hopefully put it on the market in the near future. So I'm doing that quite a bit over the last month or so. So
if any of you are looking to buy a house,
yeah, exactly.
Pay attention to the show. Send your people this way. Crawley can give you a live walkthrough.
That is true.
Let's make that happen for Crawley here. Selling. But first, we're going to go ahead and get into the week that was. Talking about the UC Bearcats. Man, they went 2-0 last week, and this week they reverted back to 0-2. Lost to Texas Tech by 10. And then I don't know what happened in BYU. They didn't show up to play. So now they're 2-6 in the Big 12, 12-7 overall. Before we get down to any of the breakdowns, I think the question that we need to ask is, where's the heart gone for the Bearcats, right? Known for their defense tenacity. Apparently they didn't show it in the second half at all, getting outscored by 23 points. And leads to the next question. Is Wes's message getting through to him? Because when trailing at halftime, since in the Wes Miller's era, they're 11-31. I'm not calling for Wes to be fired or anything like that. So those of you out there, don't say I'm a hater or anything, but I'm just asking, is his message not getting through, or is it because of the NIL? Kids don't really want to play defense anymore and they'll just go somewhere else? I don't know. But what do you guys, your takes on the Bearcats? I'll sit back and listen.
Yeah, so I watched the first half of the BYU game last night. They had, I think, like 22 points at halftime, and I was like, I'm not staying up any later to watch this garbage. Because, they can't score. And I never thought I'd say this, but I miss Mick Cronin's offense right now. Never thought those words would ever come out of my mouth. But they can't score. Nobody can get a bucket. Nobody can, just make a jumper. It looks like a JV offense. And then you couple that with their second half. I was reading a bunch of stuff, and a lot of people were saying they had no effort. You mentioned that, Dad. They had no effort, and it kind of looked like they just quit. And that's coaching. I guess whatever Wes Miller is saying is stale, and the guys just aren't responding to it anymore. So he's going to either have to drastically shake some things up, maybe with his rotations, some playing time. Not exactly sure, but something's going to have to change, and it's not going to happen with the guys that are getting major minutes right now.
Yeah, I agree with everything Sam's saying there. I just don't know if they're. I think talked about this way back, and I was very confident in this. That they were going to have a really good year this year, but my concern, because I'd heard it from enough people, was they had no alpha. I mean, they had no top player. They had a bunch of good players. And I was hoping that with experience and most of these guys being there a full year coming back, which most teams don't have, and all that kind of thing, that it would play out and for the positive. And it hasn't. I just, they don't have guys. They just don't have guys that can put up even 20 points. I mean, they just don't. And so when you have a guy who puts up 14 and the other guys are putting up 6, that's not enough. Not in the Big 12. So
No.
I think the offense is just so bad right now that I think they're just a little bit defeated. And you're playing a team that you should beat. And BYU is not all that good. They came in a losing record in the Big 12, and BYU goes out and shoots 65% or something in the second half for three-pointers or whatever it was. UC can't shoot. They wouldn't shoot that if there was no one in the gym. So I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't. I think right now they're in a really difficult position that I don't know how they're going to get out of, because they just don't have good enough players right now to get out of it. They don't have a guy who's just going to, go in and, hey, I'm going to score 35 next game and drag us to a win. They don't have that guy.
And they don't have the effort either. Like, they don't. It's one thing. I mean, we've sat here, we've seen plenty of UC teams struggle offensively, but they dig in on the defensive side of the ball and they win games 57-50. This team's not capable of that. It seems if they're not scoring, they're not playing defense.
Right, and that's where, my question at the very beginning was, has Wes's message gone stale, or do these kids just don't want to play defense?
Well, they've been playing very good defense all year. This has just been something that's happened the last few weeks. Yeah. So,
well, they've been out rebounded.
The last 6 games, they've been out rebounded every game.
Right.
Yeah,
and that, that's a hallmark of UC's toughness is out rebounding people and playing, this stellar defense, and they're not, they're losing that sight. Yeah. And like you said, Charlie, in the Big 12, it's really hard to find that. I mean, you might get a win here like they did a couple of weeks ago, but this is a gauntlet of a schedule.
They play 2 games every week, and it's doesn't slow down.
No, and they got Utah. They're staying out in Beehive State.
Another average Big 12 team,
who beat BYU, and then West Virginia, who's 23rd, I think now.
But I mean, their offense is just ridiculously bad. That's what it boils down to. I mean, if you're playing a game and you are concerned you're going to score only 40 points in a game, which has happened, then you're going to go into the game, thinking you got to be perfect, and they're nowhere near that. And so I think they're just. I think the players, the coaches, everybody's looking for answers, and you can't. There's no one to make change. You can't. It's like it's kind of like the Bengals defense and the Reds. Right. Much of the time, the Reds offense. Where do you go? There's nobody on the sideline they can pull in. So,
but you can try some different things, and I know Wes made the comment.
So we got to be able to score.
They were hunting good shots, but here's the thing, though, right? Use that tenacity, use your aggressiveness, and I know they want to get to the rim, but we might have to switch the offense up a little bit where we're passing into the rim instead of trying to drive, draw, and dish. And get to the foul line, and they attempted 4 foul shots last night and made 1. You've got to be, if you're predicated on toughness, you got to get to the free throw line, and you have to be able to get the ball inside and do some damage that way on.
But again, they don't have post players. They don't have post scorers. You can't.
Then it comes back.
You got your 2 main post players are horrible post offensively. So how do you can't just magically snap your finger and say, hey, let's run a post offense. You don't have them. You don't have those guys.
Well,
and BYU knows that. So they were packing the paint. They were daring UC to shoot threes because they know they ain't going to make them. And sure enough, they didn't. 5 for 28.
Yep.
And one guy made 4 of them. So, I mean, I think Jizzle's like 3 for his last 35 or something at this point. I mean, and he just keeps jacking them up. 0 for 5 again. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. I don't think you can just say like, hey, let's change this up or let's run this post thing or whatever. The other teams know what
the,
UC can't do right now, which is shoot.
Right,
So
right.
they're putting
And that's
5 guys
where-
in the paint. You can't drive on 5 guys in the paint. I don't care who you are.
No, but that's where you have to.
They're not good enough. That's the bottom line. They're not good enough. Bengals defense, not good enough. Reds offense, not good enough. When it comes, sometimes talent isn't not good enough.
Yeah, but there are some smoke and mirrors that you can do, and you can get some shots close to the basket. It's whether or not
just run Houston's offense. Not a single dude Kelvin Sampson has ever had can shoot. They all look like they're shooting with the wrong hand, and they win games because all 5 guys crash the offensive glass like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what you try and do, and you just get 25 second chance points a game because you're not getting any first chance points. So I don't know. You gotta try something.
Well, let's we'll move on. Let's hope that the Bearcats can rebound out there in Utah and steal one from the Utes, and then when they come back home, West Virginia, it's going to be tough. But let's just see what they have. And I know we're not talking a lot about Xavier, but I do want to give a shout out to the Muskies. They did win 2 games this week, 2 tough games. Took down UConn yesterday. Great atmosphere at the Cintas Center. That's a team that, we might need to, ever since we stopped talking about them, they started winning a little bit. So, we might need to revisit them here and there as they get close to the Big East championship.
I mean, they're a lot closer to the tournament than UC is at this point. I mean, they have two top 10 wins in the last, or top 15 wins in the last 2 weeks. So,
right.
I mean,
yeah. So we might bring them back on the show. Never know. All right. Reds news, not a whole lot happening. Just there's 5 prospects, Charlie's favorite word, in the top 100. Chase Burns, is
other words, non-Reds players.
Well, Rhett Lauder is in there because he hasn't qualified yet.
Right.
But, and then Buster Olney, 7th, the Reds, and one of the 7 teams that most improved in the offseason, which kind of chuckled at. But any thoughts on the prospects, or we just got to wait till spring training?
I don't have any.
Yeah, I really don't either.
All right. Bengals news this week. They hired Al Golden. You heard it here first. I made that prediction a couple of weeks ago when we were talking after Lou got fired. I said they're probably waiting on Al Golden. It's coming from Notre Dame, 2nd ranked defense in the nation, to the national champs, Ohio State, who just lost their DC to rival Penn State. Thoughts on the Al Golden hire? Good, bad? What do you think?
I mean, when he was the linebackers coach, that was the year or 2 where Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt were at their best. So he can get them playing, back up to that level, that improves the defense a little bit. Until there's like serious actual personnel changes, it's not really going to make much of a difference. It doesn't really matter who the defensive coordinator is. They need another pass rusher. They need another safety, and they need a lockdown corner. So, they've got some major needs that need to be addressed. Al's going to be familiar with what they do and how they operate. So hopefully, he didn't take this job without being able to have some input so that he can get the guys that he wants so that he can be successful. So we'll see. We'll see in the next 5-6 months, really, before we'll have any actual expectations for him.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And only other thing I'll say is, I think maybe the biggest negative for Lou was the development of the younger players, because there was very little development of the younger players. So, or at least over the last couple of years. And we don't know if that's because they're not any good or because they, the coaching just didn't, he was not the biggest fan of young players and kind of overlooked them a lot. So, so if Al Golden has the ability to do that, having a lot of college in his background, he has a lot more college than he does NFL in his background. So maybe he'll have a better ability in that area. Maybe coaches he'll bring in to help out we'll be better in that area. So if that happens, that's a plus, and it'll be a good hire.
Yeah, they also hired a couple of offensive. I think the line coach, right? Offensive line
and defensive line.
And defensive line. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, from the Patriots, who had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. It was great.
All right.
The Patriots guy was the D line, I think, or was
or
it the
D
A
line?
line?
No, I thought he was the O line. Or maybe, I don't know. Their defense wasn't any good either. I don't know how you hire a Patriots coach, but whatever.
Well, they had. We were upset about Bengals personnel. Their personnel was even worse.
That's true.
They had Michael Jordan on the offensive line.
But they beat us.
Maybe the worst offensive lineman in the NFL for the last 5 years.
And that's why Zach.
Well, that's why we hired those guys, because they beat us.
Hey, they beat us. That's taking the book from.
Well, there'd be a lot of guys we could hire if that was the only qualification.
That's like the Reds. Oh, Candelario, he beat us all the time. So let's just bring him on our side. And well, there we go. Enough of that. Okay. Our last little thing that we've been starting here is rankings. We are going to be ranking Cincinnati sports teams in different categories. And, if you'd like to chime in, go ahead and find us on Instagram or Twitter or X at CincySportScn and give us your comments. The rankings here is the 6 best Cincinnati stadiums. So you got the Cintas Center, you have Nippert, you have the Shoemaker, if it's still called the Shoe. I don't know if it's called the Shoe, or Fifth Third Arena. FTQL, Great American, and it's not Paycor anymore. It's
it still is right now, but
it still is. But it'll
maybe
be
Paychecks. I think it was a company that bought them.
Get your paychecks here. All right. All right. So go ahead. Let's rank them in.
Unless you're a Bengals wide receiver.
There you go. Yes. Let's go reverse order. The 6th best. Who do you got?
Who's starting?
Go ahead, Crawley.
This is an easy one. Bengals. That place is. Does anything stand out about the Bengals stadium?
The big new jumbo.
That stands. Have you seen the Jerry World's jumbo? That stands out.
Right, I know.
So
I'm being facetious
here
now.
So the bank, that was easy. That was the easiest one for me. The other ones are tougher, but that was easy. Yeah. That's number 6.
Yeah.
Yep. I would say 6.
Mine as well.
All right. Number 5.
This one was tougher for me. It came down for me to be between the. Let me look at make sure I got it right. Yeah. The basketball arenas. I don't think either basketball arena is great. I think both of them, Xavier and UC's, are good. UC's Fifth Third is much better than the old Shoemaker in terms of watching a game. It would have been easy if it was the old Shoemaker Fifth Third. That might have been actually last. But it's fine. It's okay now. But I put that 5th. UC Fifth Third.
So then you got Xavier 4th. I'm
Correct.
Taking it.
Yep.
Yeah. This is Cintas. Cintas was state of the art when it 20 some years ago, 28 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, and they renovated it a couple years ago.
Right.
It has good sight lines for the most part.
Yep.
So,
but nothing that wows you anymore.
No, I don't think so.
No, I haven't been to Fifth Third, so I really, I don't know. I would put them 4th as well, and then Xavier would probably be 3rd for me.
No, I put
I
put UC 5th and 4th.
Yeah.
UC Bass,
there we go.
5th, 3rd, and then Cintas.
Yep.
Mine's a little different. I've got Nippert in my 5. All really for me, 5 through 2 are all real close. There's not a whole lot differentiating them. I'm just not. This is just a personal preference. I don't like the unequal design. And I get it because they got the big press box on the one side and then the small upper deck on the other. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the unequalness of it all. But it's great just on campus stadium right there. It's really just kind of more of a nitpicky personal preference thing. I do think it's not a dump. It's it's closer to 2 than it is to 6, I guess I should say. So
what's your fourth then? Since
my
Carl
fourth then is Fifth Third Basketball Arena.
So then go 3. Let's go 3. Who do you have, Sam?
Cintas.
Cintas.
Cintas is third. Yep.
I would probably go Nip third, just because I don't know. It is what it is. I mean, I just think Nip has a lot of charm, a lot of character, but the amenities are slowly building them up. We'll see.
Yeah, I have Nipper third as well. That's the place I spend with all these places. I spend the most time at, so maybe that's a little bit of a bias, putting it a little higher. I don't know. I think it's just cool in the middle of campus. It's literally part of campus. It's open all the time. Not even just during football games. Not a lot of stadiums in the entire country, if there are any other stadiums in the country that have that feature. I like the sunken stadiums too. I think those are cool. The pit kind of style. Michigan's is like that. So yeah.
All right. Number 2. Crawley, back to you.
Yeah, 1 and 2. I kind of went back and forth a little bit on. So because these kind of stand out to me. So I decided I went with 2 being GABP. I like it. I think it's a really nice stadium. Wish the tenants were a lot better. But the stadium itself is I think underrated compared to a lot of other stadiums. I'd rather be there than Wrigley. I think that place is a dump. I've been to Seattle, wasn't all that good.
Definitely.
And a lot of people love Seattle from what I, just listening to, seeing lists like this that come up, and I didn't think it was anything special at all. So I would, so I think GABP very underrated nationally. So I put that too.
Yeah, it's my second as well, pretty much for the same reasons Crawley said. I think it is very underrated nationally. It's not my favorite ballpark. I think I've mentioned it before. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh is, in my opinion, the best ballpark around. That's kind of what dropped them out of the 1 spot for me. It's just they're not even the best in their division, in my opinion. So,
yeah. This was tough because I have not set foot into TQL, so I don't know what they have. I didn't want to put them 5th or 6th because it's a brand new stadium. I'm pretty sure, if I get to a game this year, I'll be wowed by it. So I'm going to put them 2nd, and that's probably the only reason why I put them 2nd, because I haven't been in it, and I can't really be judging, saying, yeah, they're the number 1 best stadium when I haven't actually been in there. So
that makes sense.
And so that leaves my number 1 as GABP. Just for everything you said, Crawley. It's underrated. Sight lines are great. During the week you can get food really quick and easy, depending on where you're going. Because we were sitting up in the 400 with our season tickets, and just exit right out of there. There's 3 or 4 concession stands, $2 beer night. You can't beat that. Dollar dogs. Yeah, I just think it's a good place to watch a ball game. I mean, people aren't always on top of you, and that's a good thing that I like as well. What do you got there? You both have TQL,
TQL.
Right?
Yep.
All right. Tell us why.
I mean, I just think it's a beautiful stadium. It's a modern stadium, and it's kind of got the European feel where it's not a dome, but it's a covered stands, which is something that the United States doesn't really utilize in our sports stadiums. And I'm not 100% sure why. I think it's the best look that there is. If you kind of read up on MLS lists, I mean, it's the best stadium in MLS. It's really not even close. I mean, the U.S. national team comes and plays games here for, it's state of the art. It could, if it was bigger, we would have gotten the World Cup. We would have been a host city for the World Cup, obviously. This goes to why Paul Brown is number 6 on our list, because that's what we had to offer. And, they're not going to put that on the world stage. But I mean, as far as MLS is concerned, it's the best stadium. It sits 26,000 people, something like that.
Yeah.
I think 25,513. The lighting features that they have around, like I said, it's just a very modern German style soccer stadium. And I mean, you could put it up against any soccer stadium in the world of that size, and I think it would hold its own.
Yeah, I agree with all those things. I mean, I've sat in various places for different games, and including from lower deck to upper deck, and there is no. I mean, upper deck is great still. I mean, so there's no issues there. Concessions, all that kind of stuff. They probably have the best variety of things of any of the stadiums, arenas that I, at least Cincy wise, to offer. So yeah, I put that number one.
All right. There you have it. If you have anything different, go ahead and find us on Instagram, Facebook, and or X, and share your comments with that. All right, moving on, we have the trivia segment here. And if you also want to play along, you can do that as well on all of our socials at CincySportScn. So I think, Sam, you got it, or is it Crawley this week?
I had it last week.
Yeah, so Crawley has it this week. So let's just go ahead and, because instead of trying to answer all of them, maybe we get one guess at the answer, and then we'll move on and let our listeners try to participate. What do you guys think? Instead of spending 5 minutes trying to figure it out.
Works for me.
All right, so here we go. All right, Crawley, take it away.
Okay. So this question came up because there was a chance that this is an NFL head coach question, that one of the coaches from this weekend would have gone on this list, but the Commanders did not win, so Dan Quinn does not go on the list. But because of that, it's now at 7. And the question is, how many NFL coaches have coached 2 different teams to the Super Bowl? Or who are they? Who are the? There are 7. Not how many. There are 7 of them. Who name them? Name the 7 who have.
Shula's one.
Yep. Well, which one?
Don, not Dave.
I said could have been Dave. Could have been Mike.
No.
Andy Reid.
Yep.
Andy Reid's 2, and then
Parcells.
Bill.
Yep.
Parcells is 3.
And New England was the second team.
Mm-hmm. Not like Dungy never took Tampa Bay, did he? No, because Gruden.
That was
Gruden, right?
I don't think Gruden took the Raiders though.
Right. Yeah, they flip flopped on each other.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It was a Tuck rule.
Yeah. So what?
Weeb Eubank. No, the Jets coach.
He took Miami. Miami University there.
Yeah. Well, he took the Jets.
I know, but he coached at Miami also.
Yeah. Who else? Well,
that's tough. I'm just trying to think of some of the most recent.
Is it not Pete Carroll?
Nope.
Pete Carroll?
Pete Carroll? No.
Arians. Bruce Arians?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
No, he didn't take the Cardinals?
No,
that was before him?
It was, we'll get one more each here. It was Dan Reeves.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yep.
Yeah.
Falcons and Broncos.
And Broncos. And then there was somebody who was a New England Jets.
About Mike Shanahan.
Nope.
No.
Joe Gibbs. Well, how many did we get?
You got 4, I think, which is pretty good.
Okay, we got 4.
Yes, you got 4. Yeah, so far. There's 3 left.
Who's the guy for the Rams? Dick Vermeil. That's the guy who I was thinking of when I said
that's
Pete Carroll.
Dick
That's who I was
Vermeil,
thinking.
Eagles and Rams.
So that's 5. All right, so we'll let the listeners chime in and come up with the other 2 since our time limit is up. So now we're going to move into our time machine. Going back in time to the 1981 football season. And memory lane, we had a guest lined up, but unfortunately he could not be here tonight. He got the case of the yucks, and he went to every single Bengals game that year, including the Freezer Bowl game. But, he'll be back when we do this again, when we talk about Super Bowl season number 2 for the Bengals sometime coming, in the near future. But give you a little preface. I was in 6th grade at the time when the Bengals in 81. Sam wasn't even thought of then. And then Crawley, how old were you?
I just turned 7.
So 7 years old.
7 years old, yeah.
So going back in our memories, there's not a lot that I really remember as far as individual games, but I do remember the players. I remember, Chris Collinsworth being drafted, and playing. And then obviously I remember the Freezer Bowl because, we watched it everywhere. And, my sister was a sophomore, so she had her friends over watching the game, and mom and dad and myself were sitting, they had a big sectional sofa where my sister's friends were all there, and I was the one turning back, on the floor, turning the TV up and all that kind of thing. We didn't have remote controls back then. I was the remote control, but I just remember, that was the game. I vividly remember that in the Super Bowl. But what are some things that stand out for you, Crawley, when you were researching this?
Just about that season in general?
Yeah, just about that season in general. Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, that's kind of the first season that I even remember any like specific elements of, and I think partly is that was the first game I ever actually went to live. Was the 49ers when they came. They played the 49ers during the season, and of course lost to them. The Bengals did, but I remember that, so that kind of maybe makes it stand out for me. But it's just, I just remember different elements of it. Watching different parts of it. I remember that was the season, the very first game of the year. They played the Seahawks, and Turk Schonert came on, and when they were down, Kenny Anderson must have got hurt. I don't remember all the details of that, but
he threw 3 picks.
Oh, and they pulled him.
Yeah. 2 of them were pick 6 in the first quarter. Yeah. And Forrest Gregg said, "We ain't messing around. Sit down."
Yeah, so he came on and basically led him to victory. And so I remember, just kind of little flashes of that. But probably most stuff that I remember is really just stuff I've read about it or that kind of stuff. It's not really things.
Like when I was researching, I was trying to put together some clips and stuff, but the NFL blocked all the rights. I couldn't clip them. I couldn't clip them, and damn NFL. I wasn't even thinking that I probably should have had written, seeing if I could use it. But maybe the next time I'll plan ahead a little bit and see if I can't get some clips for our next throwback.
Yeah, I remember Pete Johnson being the big running back and him just running over people, and kind of our version of Earl Campbell. He was listed as a fullback, but in today's world, he would be a running back. He wouldn't be on no fullback.
There's no fullbacks anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But
Charles Alexander was the other one.
Yeah.
But yeah, to start the season, the Bengals were, obviously coming off of I think they only won 6 games the year before, and Paul Brown, who is an innovator, he's the one who designed the helmets and the stripes. And I'm watching a couple of interviews from the whole league was like, what is this? They were like laughing stock, right? And Chris Collinsworth, who was a rookie, he said, yeah, when you put that helmet on, you better shut up and play, because if you don't win, you're going to be made fun of a lot. And they won, right? They came back game 1, and then game 2 they were trailing, and they had a strip sack of Richard Todd for the Jets, and they scooped it up and scored, and they came back and won that. And then they just sort of like was going back and forth. They were 5-2, and then November hit, and they won 5 games in November, and that's what just catapulted them.
You mean it helps to win your first couple games of the season? That can catapult you to more success. What the heck?
Imagine that, hey, but, and then we had, Lewis Breeden, they went, it's funny because they played, like you said, they played San Francisco early in the year, and then, and they lost to them, and then they played, the Chargers as well. And in week 10, and that's where Lou Breeden had a 102-yard, the longest in Bengals history, interception return for a touchdown. And, they shut down Eric Coryell and his mighty, offense. And, that's sprung them, because that was like I think it was week 1 or week 2 in November. And that's where they just got on a roll and won the next, 3 games. They were 5-0 in November. And then December rolls around, and let's see here. They've got
they won all 3 of their December games.
No, they lost to San Fran. That was
that was December the 6th, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they won their last 2, Pittsburgh, Atlanta.
Pittsburgh and Atlanta. Right. And in the Atlanta game, that's where the person came and stole the ball. I don't know, because when I was doing the research, the Bengals, they were getting ready to, I don't know, either punt or kick a field goal, and a fan just comes running off out of Fulton County Stadium and just slides and steals the ball and starts taking off, and everybody's just standing like, what the heck just happened? But and then you get into the playoffs where they had the Bills, and it was back and forth there for a while. The Bengals had to play their defense, and they came out victorious 28-21 to set up a rematch with the Chargers. And an interesting fact is that the Bills game, was 50 degrees. Right? I mean, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful winter day here in Cincinnati. And in the wild card rounds, San Diego was playing Miami, and that was the game that was just crazy, where the hook and lateral, Kellen Winslow was dehydrated. I mean, it was just the humidity and everything, right? So they were a little gassed that, from Miami, they went back to San Diego to prep for the championship game, and then all of a sudden, the wind, the wind chill, the temperature started dropping, and it was -9 the day of, and obviously the wind was 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, and it was -59. San Diego's owner contacted the Bengals and asked if they could come out to San Diego instead of playing in this condition. And, Paul Brown was like, no, we're not going to do that. You're playing here. We earned the right, and you come here. And that game was just crazy. I just, crazy. There's, crazy fans, shirtless, all that kind of stuff. You knew there would be some idiots like that. And, the Bengals linemen come out and no sleeves. And it was one of Forrest Gregg's rules is like you practice in what you're going to wear at the game. And, the Bengals the offensive line never wore sleeves underneath, because they didn't want the defense to grab them and throw them off. And Lapham, when he was talking about this, he just said, yeah, we've been doing it all year. We're not changing. And it sort of set the the psychological edge on San Diego, where they came out like, oh my gosh, it is just so, they were thinking about the cold, and they see the Bengals offensive linemen over there in short sleeves and thinking these guys are crazy. What are we in for? But overall, set the tone. First play of the game, kickoff, James Brooks running it, right? Bengals, one of the best Bengals running backs, but got stripped, fumbled. Cincinnati picks it up, and they don't score a touchdown, but I think they kick a field goal there, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know Jim Breach had 2 field goals, and ML Carr had a touchdown, and then somebody else had a touchdown for the Bengals. I don't know. What else do you remember of that season?
I remember more about the Freezer Bowl, just kind of all the craziness around it, and I did watch it. I definitely remember watching it. I don't remember watching the Bills game, but I probably did, but I have no recollection of that. But I do remember watching the Freezer Bowl when they had all the pictures of people in the stands, the no shirts, and then like ice hanging off beards and mustaches. And I think those people that had no shirts ended up getting had to go to the hospital and stuff. At least some of them did. Yeah. Because of frostbite and things. So
probably because they were inebriated on top of it.
I'm sure that didn't help, but
yeah. And anything, do you remember? I mean, I know you don't remember anything.
Obviously not.
but I mean, just from your research, I mean, did you find anything?
I mean, I'm just, looking through just kind of, a summary of the season. The first thing I looked at was, okay, who'd they draft going into the season? Didn't realize that was Collinsworth's rookie year. I also didn't realize there used to be 12 rounds to the NFL draft, so that was a lot.
Yep.
And then they only kept 6 of the 12 draft picks. So that's, kind of funny. And then I was just trying to look at some other names. David Verser's the only other one that I even recognize.
He was the number 1 pick.
He was their first round pick. Yeah, Collinsworth was the second. Collinsworth was the only guy that made a Pro Bowl out of that draft for the Bengals. At least it doesn't really say if anybody else made one. And then just kind of looking through the schedule, it's just funny to see all the mixed-use stadiums that were in use back then. There's 6 or 7 of them on here that they played at, including Riverfront. So definitely a different era. And they have the attendance listed here. So week 1 against the Seahawks, only 41,000 showed up. So that Reds must have been good that year. Cincinnati wasn't thinking about the Bengals yet, because later on you see the attendance is closer to 57, 58,000. So,
and the Bengals had come off a bad year,
right?
Yeah, but the expectations weren't as high as the expectation. But and Kenny Anderson was the MVP of the year of the league that year.
Kenny Anderson was the MVP after the horrendous start. Yes,
right.
He played excellent. And let's talk about the Super Bowl. The thing that I remember about the Super Bowl is my cousin. He's actually my cousin. Excuse me. But he was my dad's age, so I called him my uncle. And excuse me. He was the paramedic here. Well, actually, he was fire chief of Waterford Township, where Pontiac was, and he was at the game in the ambulance, and he told Dad that, hey, if you and Dave want to come up, you can sit in the ambulance with us and watch the game. And I was like, let's go, Dad, let's go. And Dad was like, no, it's going to be cold up there, snow, and I don't want to go, because it was just right after the minus 59. And people don't remember, it was minus 35. Now, granted, it was a dome, but it was very, very hazardous traveling conditions on 75 and up and around the Michigan area. And I was just so mad because I wanted to go to a Super Bowl game and be on the field and, watch the Bengals win. And And my dad was like, no, it's too cold. We're not going.
Was that the only cold weather Super Bowl until they went to wherever, New York or wherever they were?
Minnesota.
They went to Minnesota, but it was inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they went to Ford's Field again.
But I mean, in that first half of the Super Bowls.
I think so. Well, New Orleans was.
Well, it's not cold weather.
It's not cold, but at the time
I'm talking about a northern cold weather city.
Yeah.
I think Detroit was a weird choice because Super Bowls weren't played anywhere north.
Right, but it was a dome.
Yeah,
that's
how they got away. Yeah, that's
right.
But
right. Yeah, because the Kingdome, they didn't host. Did they ever host?
I don't think so. The
Seattle
Kingdome.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I don't either, but domes did back then. So yeah, so the game itself started out horrible for the Bengals. Once again, I think it was on the opening kickoff, the 49ers fumbled, and we couldn't do anything.
Well, Anderson threw an interception on that drive.
That's right. He did throw an interception, and then San Francisco marched down and scored, and we went down 20-0 at half. And I remember just being so ticked off that I didn't even want to watch the second half. And I think
Bengals had 3 turnovers in the first half.
Right, and they lost the turnover battle and they lost the game. But they came out in the second half, and then they started to enforce their will a little bit on the defensive end, and Kenny Anderson started hitting pass. And Dan Ross, who is, one of the best tight ends in the league, set a Super Bowl then record of 11 catches and a touchdown. It's just a little too late. And the big thing was in the third quarter where we're at the 3-yard line and ran the ball 3 times to Pete Johnson and didn't get in. And then the one time on third down that we threw it to Alexander, he cut his route. His route was supposed to be in the end zone before he turned around. Instead, he turned around at the 1 and he got hit immediately and got stuffed. And then the next play, they ran off the right side, and you've got your all-pro left tackle standing there. Like, I don't know why we're not running behind him. Don't know. So that's what I remember of the second half. I don't know about you, Crawley.
Yeah, the thing that the goal line stand, sticks out. At that point, it was 20-7, I believe.
Yes.
And it was the end of the late third quarter. So I think a lot of people think it was like the end of the game, that it was.
But it wasn't.
The Bengals were down by 5, and this was like to win the game, whatever. But it's kind of like the Lewis Billups non-interception in 88 when that wasn't even in the fourth quarter either. So,
no.
But so that's the thing that really stood out to me, just from my 7-year-old brain and what I can, kind of what it goes to. Is that, when I was watching like the NFL films highlights today about the game, that was, most of that stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I don't, like the specific plays of the game, in terms of, even, the Bengals. I remember Dan Ross having a big game, Collinsworth being out there and that sort of thing. But another element to the whole, that Super Bowl story was the Bill Walsh story of, coming up through the Bengals coaching ranks and almost being chosen as the successor to Paul Brown. A lot of people thought he would be the successor, and he was not. And then they even chose, I think, someone else ultimately. You were Tiger Johnson. Is that who we were saying?
Yeah, Tiger Johnson.
And then Walsh got a chance to go to San Francisco and be a head coach, so he went there, and they were not very good either the year before. The 49ers, they had
I think they were 6-12 as well.
Yeah, they're
6-10.
Late 70s for the 49ers were not all that good. So Walsh comes in, of course, also get Joe Montana as your quarterback. So I think, seems to go hand in hand when you get coaches that have really good years, from teams that weren't very good. It was typically because there's a quarterback there that's helping them as well. So but subplot with it. And then you have the West Coast offense and the 49ers that is credited to Bill Walsh. And even in the NFL Films video, they said a number of times how, the 49ers their drives were, 8-yard pass here, 5-yard pass here, here's a run, here's a 7-yard pass. They didn't, West Coast offense was not about throwing the ball 40 yards down the field and all that type of thing. So, so you kind of had the start of something that, really dominated the 80s for sure. And if not even in the 90s in terms of, that style of offense and that sort of thing. Yep. So, but yeah, I just remember being, my 7-year-old brain, just being sad about, the Bengals came this far and they lost, and, what did that mean? And of course it meant they weren't back to a Super Bowl till the end of the decade. And I was, right. Much more aware of, I have much more recollection of specific details from that season. Right. At that point, I was in high school. So,
yep. So, well, hopefully you guys liked the walk down memory lane a little bit. Go ahead and just let us know your memories of the 81-82 first Cincinnati Super Bowl season. And I can almost guarantee you this, Paul Brown or Riverfront Stadium at the time, 56,000 people. And I think there was like 42,000 or 48,000 people that were at the Freezer Bowl. If we take a poll, there's probably about 120,000 people that said they were at the game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But that's everybody said they were at the game and yada yada yada. But no, if you like it, just go ahead and give us your recollections of the season and some of the highlights and lowlights even of the Bengals season there, like we did.
So the attendance for the Freezer Bowl, I've got it right here, was 46,302.
Okay.
So about 9,000 less than the week before.
Yeah. So. Yeah. All right. So that wraps up our Time Machine edition. Next week, we're going to be doing 10 topics in 10 minutes. We are going to be talking a little bit. We're going to throw out 10 random topics that we want to talk about, and we're going to do a rapid fire, boom, 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 get some answers, those type of things. So stay tuned for that. If you have any suggestions for our topics, go ahead and send those to us on Instagram or Twitter at CincySportScn. Once again, appreciate everybody listening and tuning in. You can find us on all your podcasting platforms, and then also be looking out on YouTube for this episode, probably coming out on Tuesday, and then some clips of the trivia and things will be coming out on our social media feed at CincySportScn. So until next week, for Sam and Charlie, I'm Dave. Everybody have a wonderful week. Take care.
See ya.
Take care, everyone.